Today is Wednesday, August 19th, 2026, and today is National Potato Day, which means somewhere a potato is being baked, another is becoming French fries, and the one in the back of your pantry is quietly becoming a science project. Potatoes have range. And apparently so does August 19th, because today we're talking about a minister who did the one thing people thought a witch couldn't do, a wooden ship that appeared to shrug off cannonballs, and a race where the cars had no engines and the drivers were children. Welcome to Wait, That's Random, This Day in History. I'm C.L. Burns, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and your reasonably calm guide through humanity's long history of strange decisions. George Burroughs had once been the minister of Salem Village. By 1692, he was living in Maine, which probably seemed like a safe distance from his old congregation. It wasn't. The accusations had been spreading through Salem for months. People claimed they were being attacked by invisible forces. Neighbors accused neighbors. Personal grudges, old disagreements, and ordinary misfortunes were suddenly being treated as evidence of witchcraft. And this is one of those moments where history needs some context. The people involved lived in a world where Satan wasn't an abstract idea. Many of them believed he could interfere directly in their lives, and the court was willing to accept spectral evidence. Testimony that someone's spirit or apparition had caused harm even if nobody else could see it. Once that kind of evidence counts, defending yourself becomes nearly impossible. Burroughs was arrested in Maine and brought back to Salem. His accusers said his spirit had tormented them. They claimed he possessed unnatural strength. Some even called him the leader of all the witches in New England. On August 19, 1692, Burroughs was taken to the gallows with Martha Carrier, George Jacobs Jr., John Proctor, and John Willard. Before he was executed, Burroughs stood in front of the crowd, proclaimed his innocence, and recited the Lord's Prayer. Perfectly. That mattered because many people believed a witch was physically incapable of saying the prayer without making a mistake. And Burroughs didn't stumble. He didn't forget a line. He completed the prayer so convincingly that people in the crowd began to question what they were watching. This was supposed to be impossible. According to a contemporary account, Cotton Mather, watching from horseback, reminded the unsettled crowd that Burroughs had been convicted and warned that the devil could disguise himself as something innocent. And the execution continued. That detail stopped me when I first read it. They had created a test that was supposed to reveal the truth. Burroughs passed it, and when the result didn't match the answer they expected, they simply decided the test no longer mattered. Now, here's another August 19th moment built around people watching something happen that didn't fit what they thought they knew. But this time, nobody was imagining it. They were watching cannonballs hit a wooden ship and bounce away. The War of 1812 had only been underway for a couple of months, and the United States Navy was badly outnumbered by Britain's Royal Navy. One of the American ships was USS Constitution, a heavy frigate designed to be larger, stronger, and more heavily armed than many ships in its class. On August 19th, Constitution encountered the British frigate HMS Guerriere in the North Atlantic. Captain Isaac Hull brought the American ship in close. He reportedly held most of his fire until the ships were nearly within pistol range, then ordered a full broadside. But before that happened, the British were already firing. Some of their cannonballs struck Constitution's hull and appeared to bounce off. The ship wasn't made of iron. It was built with exceptionally thick layers of oak. But from the deck, that apparently wasn't obvious. According to the account that became part of the ship's legend, one sailor saw what was happening and shouted, "Huzzah! Her sides are made of iron!" And just like that, a wooden ship had a new name, Old Ironsides. The battle itself didn't last long. Constitution's gunfire brought down Guerriere's mast and left the British ship so badly damaged that it had to surrender. The Americans transferred the prisoners and burned what remained because the captured vessel was no longer seaworthy. USS Constitution returned home to a public that desperately needed some good news. Britain had the most powerful navy in the world. and an American frigate had just defeated one of its warships in a direct fight. Constitution is still a commissioned U.S. Navy ship today. More than 2 centuries after that battle, it still carries the nickname created by a sailor who watched a cannonball hit wood and decided he must be looking at iron. A wooden ship became famous because it appeared to be made of iron is strange enough. But 122 years later, August 19th gave us another unexpected vehicle. This one made from scrap lumber, rolling on borrowed wheels and missing one fairly important feature: an engine. In 1933, a photographer for the Dayton Daily News named Myron Scott was driving through Dayton, Ohio, when he spotted a group of boys racing homemade cars down a hill. These weren't miniature versions of real automobiles. They were whatever the kids could build from what they could find. Soap boxes, orange crates, discarded wood, and wheels taken from baby carriages. Scott took some photographs, but he didn't leave it there. He helped the boys arrange a race. 19 kids competed, and the whole thing attracted enough attention that he organized a much larger event later that summer. This time, hundreds of children showed up. That caught the attention of Chevrolet, which agreed to help turn the idea into a national competition. On August 19, 1934, young drivers representing 34 cities gathered in Dayton for the first All-American Soapbox Derby. The rules were beautifully simple. The children had to build their own cars. And the cars couldn't have engines. Gravity provided the power. The driver supplied the courage. And maybe a little faith in whoever had attached the wheels. The first national championship was 11-year-old Robert Turner of Muncie, Indiana. His car was built from wood taken from an old bar and rolled on metal wheels from a baby carriage. It didn't even have ball bearings. It still carried him across the finish line ahead of everyone else. Turner won a 4-year college scholarship, and the competition soon moved to Akron, where a permanent track called Derby Downs was constructed. What began with a newspaper photographer noticing a few kids rolling down a neighborhood hill became a tradition that has lasted for generations. And what stays with me is that Scott didn't look at those homemade contraptions and see a bunch of children playing with junk. He saw where the idea might go. That makes me think of someone else born on August 19th, a man who spent much of his life looking at the machinery around him and imagining how much farther it could take us. He was born in El Paso in 1921 and grew up in Los Angeles. As a young man, he learned to fly and became a bomber pilot during the Second World War. Flying nearly killed him more than once. After the war, he became a commercial pilot for Pan American Airways. In 1947, he was aboard a flight that developed engine trouble and crashed in the Syrian desert. 14 people were killed. He survived with broken ribs, pulled injured passengers from the burning wreckage, and, as the senior surviving flight officer, helped organize the search for assistance. After one more frightening incident in the air, he left Pan Am. And then his life took another turn that I would never have predicted from the beginning. He joined the Los Angeles Police Department. He worked as an officer and eventually wrote speeches for the police chief, but he was also quietly trying to break into television. He wrote scripts whenever he could, sometimes using a pseudonym because the department discouraged officers from taking outside work. Eventually, television won. He began writing westerns and police dramas, but the idea that defined him was something much bigger. A television series with a starship traveling through the galaxy, with a crew representing different nations, races, and even different worlds. The network rejected the first pilot for being too cerebral, which might be the most encouraging rejection a writer can receive. They liked the idea enough to request another pilot, though, and the second attempt made it onto television. The man who had survived burning aircraft, investigated crashes, and written police speeches was Gene Roddenberry, born on August 19, 1921. And the series, of course, was Star Trek. Roddenberry imagined a future in which humanity had survived its worst instincts, explored the universe, and treated curiosity as something worth pursuing. The original program lasted only 3 seasons, but the idea refused to stay canceled. It grew into films, new series, books, and an entire universe that continued long after Roddenberry's death. I kept coming back to how differently people respond when the world contradicts them. Sometimes they cling harder to what they already believe. Sometimes they give the unexpected a name, build a race around it, or imagine a future from it. I'd like to think curiosity is what keeps surprise from being wasted. And at the very least, it gives us a better conversation. Anyway, if you celebrate National Potato Day by building a soapbox racer out of a potato crate, please add brakes. You don't need an engine, but if you install headlights, remember, you're putting weather inside a wooden box. Which reminds me of something George Carlin once said. Electricity is really just organized lightning. If you'd like to explore more of my work, books, narration, or ongoing historical curiosity, you can find it all at waitthat'srandom.com. I'm C.L. Burns, and I'm glad you were here for this one. I'll see you tomorrow.